Last week, we talked to a bunch of business owners who have been in your shoes before. They started out with this idea, this passion, this drive to do this thing or make this product, and they made it. They figured it out, and we learned some best practices for that. We learned from their experiences. We also heard about best practices for pricing your product, which is a really important part of figuring out how to get from passion to profit. How do you figure out how much inventory to keep and how to price it so that you're not only competitive, but you're creating a demand for what it is that you're trying to sell? This week, we are going over all of the basics of business ownership and registration. We are going to be hearing from my colleague Gabby, who's going to be going over the basics of business registration. And then we're going to turn the floor over to our friends at the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, who are going to talk about all things taxes. And you folks on the call are probably the few that join Gabby and me and our friends at Tax to be excited to listen about taxes, right? Most people you would think are like, oh, I don't want to hear anything about taxes, but it's really, really valuable information and they do a great job at explaining what it is you need to do. So, again, if you have questions during either half of our session today, feel free to ask away in the chat. Okay. Secretary Gregamore is not able to be here with us, but he did record a video to say hi and to let you know it's coming. So I'm going to play that quickly and then we will get on with the meat of what we're talking about today. And there's not going to be any technical difficulties this time, I promise.
Hi, I'm Secretary of State Greg Amori, and I'm excited to welcome you to part two of the From Passion to Profit, Turn Your Hobby into a Business series. Today, you'll be learning more about the technical side of starting your own business, including how to register your business, and we'll hear from our partners, the Division of Taxation. Don't worry if you missed part one. My team at Business Services Division will share the recording of that session and today's session with you by email. Hope you enjoyed part two of this series and look forward to working with you in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Secretary. And with that said, you're done listening to me pretty much for the whole thing. So you're all lucky ducks. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Gabby Bannon. Gabby is our Business Information Center Program Manager. She is in charge of a lot of our educational resources, the information we provide, providing one-on-one assistance. She does a phenomenal job at it. So I am very much looking forward to you all learning from her as much as I learn from her every day. So Gabby, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Kristen. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen. Go. Okay. Great. All right. So right now I am sharing the Business Services website from the Secretary of State's office. So Business Services is a division in the Secretary of State's office, right? And as in that division, our primary function is to keep a record of all the businesses that have to register by statute with us. So that's our primary function, but we also have a secondary function, a complementary function, if you will, of educating the public around what it takes to start a business from a regulatory standpoint, and also just different things that you may encounter when starting a business, right? So this is a really great place to go, right? Our office, our website, our workshops. If you're overwhelmed and you're not even sure, you don't know what you don't know, this is a great place to start and really get educated about the different things that you should be considering and thinking about, even if you're not ready to take one particular step. For example, even if you're not ready to take on employees, or you're not ready to have a formal business location yet, right? It's good to get to know what are the things that I should be thinking about now, so that when the time comes, I'm ready, I'm prepared, and I'm educated. And so this Hobby to Business Summit, we're really trying to talk to people that are just starting out. But if you already have a business and you're wondering if this content's going to be useful for you, it will be, because we're never done learning about what to do when running a business, as I'm sure you guys already know, either if you're just starting or if you have an existing business. So I promise there's going to be a lot of good information here, and also a lot of good tools that you can use to grow and develop your business. So for the presentation today, I'm going to be using the website, our business services website. because that way, if you forget what I talked about, it's all here and you can go back and find the information easily and quickly. So the first thing I want to point out here is this business alert. And that's kind of just one of the things to consider with business ownership. So just like people are trying to call you and text you and send you emails trying to get you to pay money to them, right? It's like scams. They're going to start doing that to your business if you have a business. So let's say you have an LLC or a sole proprietorship, you may get some very official looking mail or emails or phone calls saying, wow, you need to pay this to this state agency, or you need to pay this in order to make sure this bill is paid on time. And so just like when you are getting those personal solicitations for your personal bills and your personal affairs, always think twice, because right now, thankfully, it's been resolved with the Attorney General's office, but there was a scam of a company sending out letters looking really official, saying that you needed to get a certificate of good standing to confirm your business registration with the Secretary of State's office. So that's untrue. You do not need to get a letter of good, or a certificate of good standing to confirm your business registration with the Secretary of State's office. We're going to talk about how to confirm your registration a little bit later, but they were charging people $80 for this unnecessary document. It's a real document, certificate of good standing, but if you were to come directly to us instead of responding to the mailer that they sent out, it would cost you $20 instead of 80, right? So they were requesting the certificate on your behalf and then pocketing the $60. So all that to say, please be very careful and always feel free to call us. We have a dedicated call center, and most state agencies do. I think all state agencies do, actually. So you can always call a state agency and ask, is this legitimate? That's really the best thing to do. Okay. The next thing I want to show you on our homepage is our File Online button. So maybe contrary to popular belief, we really do try to make it easy to work with us. The government is trying to make it easier to work with you. So most of the things that you need to file with our office, you can file online, and the filing online process is very quick. So we're an agency that processes our documents pretty quickly, between 1 to 3, 1 to 5 business days, depending on what it is. So be friends with the File Online button, because it's just ease of use, right? You don't have to show up in order to file anything, which I think is pretty great. Another thing I want to alert you to here is the corporate database. So this corporate database is where we keep a record of all of our businesses that have registered in the state of Rhode Island, going back to when the state of Rhode Island became a state. So I'm just going to click on the corporate database really quickly so we can see what it looks like. So the way this works is that you would type in a business name here, and that's how you would access the business record. So a couple of things to note about the corporate database. Number one, as you can see, it's public. I didn't have to type in a password or do any special sort of credentialing in order to get to this. So anything that you file with our office, any form that you give us, the information on that form is going to be made available on this corporate database. So for example, everyone is familiar with Big Blue Bug, right? And if you're not, then you're not from Rhode Island, which is okay, but you will get to know it if you ever visit. So this is their corporate record, see? So we can see a bunch of information, and it's all stuff that they presented to us on our forms. Now, another thing I wanted to show you about this corporate database is this is where you would go to search for a name. So if you're wondering, okay, how is this name available? Like, we're going to pretend that I'm going to be opening up a pupusa truck, and if you don't know what pupusas are, you should Google it, and you should eat one because they're delicious. But yeah, it's a Salvadoran dish, and I want to say I'm going to call it Gabby's pupusas. Okay. See, I searched and nothing came up. That means that name is available. So just wanted to show you that because it's very easy to check if a name is available. You can also call and ask us to do it, but this is a tool that you have at your fingertips as well. Okay. So I'm going to go back here, back to the home page, I think. There. Here we go. Back to the homepage. So if we scroll down, this is kind of the business information center of the homepage, if you will. So in these three different buckets, there's information for Rhode Island businesses, which is what we're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about today. And then there's information for foreign businesses. And the word foreign in this context just means outside of Rhode Island. So if you're a business in Massachusetts that also wants to start selling products in Rhode Island, you would be considered a foreign business. It can also mean from a different country, but it could also mean from a different state. And then we also have information for nonprofits. So we're going to start here for Rhode Island businesses, and you'll see each of these buckets has the same kind of structure. It has a plan for success, start, maintain, and then close. So each one of those has really important information for whatever stage you're in. But we're going to start with plan, because it's always good to have a plan and understand the different things we should take into consideration before we start. So you can read this in Spanish, which is nice. We are expanding the amount of translated content on our website and always looking to kind of create that accessibility. I'm also bilingual, so if you have questions for me in Spanish, feel free to ask them. And also we have a lot of bilingual staff that can help you if you come in person or if you call. So I'm going to start off here. The way this business basics page works is you start off with the plan section, and then it kind of takes you through all the different other main sections, main things that you have to consider when starting a business. So if I click on the plan, right? I love this quote: "If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail." Yes. So I agree with that. And one thing that can help you plan for starting a business is a business plan. So here on this Your Plan section of the Business Basics, we have a couple of templates you can download, which are helpful. And what is a business plan? A business plan is a document. So it's just like a Word document, right? So you can create your business plan in a Word document. And what it includes are things like your business idea, your product description, your marketing plan, who the management team is, some financial projections, right? How much does your product cost to make? How much do you plan to make as revenue for the business? And so what I want to stress about a business plan is that it's a starting point and it's a piece of paper, right? It's a piece of paper that you're going to use to plan your business, but it's not a Bible, right? As you get into business, you're going to have to change that business plan, most likely, right? Materials go up, so your financial projections are off, or you figure out that Instagram wasn't working as a sales as a marketing tool, but TikTok is. So now we're going to really focus our money there. Or maybe you're doing SEO, whatever it is that you put in this business plan, it's going to change, and you can keep coming back to it and adding to it. And I want to stress also that it doesn't have to be perfect, right, for you to start. You can have it as a starting point so that you think through all of those aspects of your business. But at the end of the day, it's an internal document that's supposed to help you run your business. So it's not something that you're going to file with the Secretary of State's office. And really, there are kind of very special situations where you would have to show it to someone else. So those special situations where you're going to have to show it to someone else, and it does have to be polished, is if you're asking for funding, right? So if you're going to a bank and you're asking for a loan, or maybe you're applying for a grant, the people that are going to be giving you the money are going to want to see the business plan, right? Or another situation where you might need to show that business plan to someone is if you're going to be operating a brick and mortar shop in Rhode Island, you might need to show it to the zoning board of your city or town hall, because when you open a brick and mortar shop, the city kind of has to sign off on that space being used for that reason, right? So if, for example, you decide to open up a restaurant, but it's not, the place that you pick isn't really zoned as a restaurant, you're going to need to show the zoning board your business plan so that they understand whether or not they can allow you to operate that restaurant in that space. or if they're going to amend what their zoning laws require, right? Um, so if you're thinking like that's a lot to plan through, it is, but you can ask for help. So that's why this year plan section has a bunch of resources here. These are all, well, not all, but this is a good list of resources in the state of Rhode Island that are free, that offers business mentoring, as well as free workshops on different types of things that you might need to know when running a business, like how to use QuickBooks, or how to put together a marketing plan. So all this to say, when you're planning, there's a lot of free resources that you can use to think through the different things that you're going to need. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but I'll just mention kind of what each organization listed here specializes on. So SCORE, this is an organization that pairs you up with a free business mentor in a specific area of business. So if you need help with marketing, you can request a marketing mentor and they'll work with you as long as you need to get your marketing efforts into action. Same with the business plan, right? If you're like, I don't know anything about numbers, because I don't know anything about numbers. I feel like math can be very scary. So you can ask for someone to help you with that, right? And I will say also, in terms of kind of getting that pricing piece down for your business and the numbers piece, if you didn't watch last week's session on pricing, it was really good and a really good place to start. So I really recommend to watch the recording of the first session, because you're going to get some good information on how to price your product and calculate the cost of your time. Small Business Development Center is similar to SCORE. They have workshops and mentors. They also have a legal clinic, so you can meet with an attorney for 30 minutes on any particular topic related to your business. Center for Women in Enterprise, they hold a lot of workshops, networking events. Commerce Corporation, they have a lot of programs that they like all over the state to help businesses grow and develop. And they also have some funding opportunities that you can check out. Small Business Administration, this is like a federal administration that has a lot of good resources. They have workshops, and they also have a really great website that has a ton of useful content. So if you wanted to search anything about employment law, or if you have like a general business term that you want to look up, going to their website is a really great place to start, and they're going to give you all the information from like the federal standpoint. Minority Business Enterprise Compliance Office. This is the office you would contact if you want to get a certification as a minority business owner, or a woman-owned business, veteran-owned business. I think that's all of the different businesses. Yeah. And then the John H. Chafee Center for International Business. This is if you want to do importing and exporting, they can really help you figure out logistics for that. And then Chambers of Commerce, those are going to be local to where you live, but they always have something going on, and that's their whole purpose, is to help business owners get off the ground and get the support that they need. So next we're going to go to your name. So that's a lot of information. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat throughout. Do we have any questions, Kristen?
Not at the moment, nope.
Okay. All right, so next is your name. So we already went over how to search the corporate database for a name. However, that is not the only place that you should be searching for a name. And the reason is because not all businesses register with us. So two types of business structures that don't register with us are sole proprietorships and general partnerships. They register at the city or town hall. So because they don't register with us, the names that those types of businesses, sole proprietorships and general partnerships, are going to be using, they're not going to be in our database. So while you can search our database and a name may be available, all that means is like an LLC or corporation in the state isn't using it. So the second piece to naming research, right, would be to type in the name you want to use, and then like Google the name you want to use and the location, right? So I searched Gabby's Pupusas, it's available at the state level, but now I want to see, like, I'm going to open it from Providence. So I want to search Gabby's Pupusas Providence and make sure there's nobody that's running a similar business with a similar name, because otherwise people could get confused and the brands could mix and it would be confusing for people to know which is which.
Yeah, very briefly, we have a question in the chat. If you could just give a tiny bit more information about how to become certified as a woman or minority owned business?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Um, so I'm going to go back to your plan here. So this is where you can get the information, the website and the phone number. And basically, contacting the office is a good first step. On the website, you can download the application. And what they're looking for is just documentation, making sure that at least, I think it's 50 or yeah, it has to be at least 50% of the business is owned by a minority party, right? So, for example, if it's a woman owned business, then 50% of the company has to be owned by women or a woman. Um, Same for any other like minority classifications, right? So if it's going to be a black owned business, then it's like half, at least 50% of the company needs to be owned by black business owners. So is there any follow-up question to that? Because the best way is to look on the website, download the application, and then call them. They have people dedicated to helping you fill out the application. One note, they did come and give a presentation. One note is that the application is very long, and while they ask that you not leave anything blank, some questions on the application don't won't apply to every business. So you can always write NA, doesn't not applicable, and just give your reason why it's not applicable. So that's just a little tip for the application. But otherwise, they're very friendly, and you can ask for help directly with them.
Thank you. Yeah, and they will sit with you as many times as you like and wherever you like to help you get to certification. It's totally free. Um, so you don't need to worry about like submitting it and having it rejected and submitting it again and having it rejected. They'll be with you the whole way. They will also want you to be certified. So they're happy to help you through. Another question in the chat related to this, Gabby, if you need to register with the Secretary of State's office first before you proceed with getting certified as an MBE or WBE.
Um, that's a good question. I don't know like the precise answer to that, but the if you don't, not all businesses need to register with the Secretary of State's office, right? We're going to go over which ones do and which ones don't. You already know sole proprietorships and general partnerships don't need to register. I'm guessing, right, with a fair degree of certainty that you're going to need to have something registered because they're going to, in the application, they're going to ask you for um, some governing documents as well as some like tax returns. So I'm guessing in order to certify a business, you probably have to have a business already formed.
Yeah, one of the things they'll ask for in as the evidence, as part of the application will be the documents that you filed to register your sole proprietorship with the city or town, or something like an LLC or corporation with the Secretary of State's office. So your business should be formed in some way, shape, or form before you go ahead and proceed to apply for certification. And Gabby, we have another question in the chat that I think you'll probably get to in a minute, but I just want to present it to you now, which is if you could talk about how to go from being a sole proprietorship to an LLC. I think it'll probably get to that in just a minute, but
Sure,
that's the
definitely.
question.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to, we already talked about the plan and we talked about our name. One last thing about the name is that Business Services also runs the state trademark program. So if you have images like a logo, or any really a logo, right? Or any other type of collateral that you want to connect with your goods or services, you can file a trademark. And that's going to protect, if you file the Rhode Island trademark, it's going to protect that logo or image in connection with your services in Rhode Island. There's also a federal trademark, which might be more applicable for people that are selling online and expect to see a lot of business from other states. But just so you know, kind of the differences between the two, our trademark program, you fill out a form, you provide a couple of documents, and you're done. The national trademark is a little bit more involved. While you can fill out the application yourself, there's a hearing process. People can contest from other states, and that's the part where you probably will need, well, if no one can test it, you won't need an attorney. But if you have people that are saying, no, this person, you can't use that because I have a similar mark or something like that, you're going to need an attorney to help defend you in court for that. So there's a very high level. You can get the Rhode Island one. It will protect you in Rhode Island. And that's something that we can help you through as well. Okay, so now we're going to go to structure, which is when we're going to get to that last question about converting from a sole proprietorship into an LLC. But this is a chart that kind of describes the basic differences between the different business structures. Not all the different business structures available in the state. There are some other ones, but these are the most popular. And I'm really going to focus on LLC and sole proprietorship because those are the two that people that it's just them or maybe them and another person are going to be interested in. So the differences between a sole proprietor and a limited liability company, right? So sole proprietor, like we said, one difference is that you don't register your business with the Secretary of State's office. You register your business with your city or town hall at the city clerk's office by filing what's called a trade name certificate. Now, if you ever heard someone say, oh, I have a DBA, they're likely talking about a sole proprietorship, right? Because what a sole proprietorship is, and what DBA stands for, is doing business as. So what that means is that as a sole proprietor, you're still you, right? You're doing business, but you have a different name that you're doing business under. So if you can think about it kind of like getting a pseudonym, like a professional pseudonym, like, when or a pen name, when an author writes something, right? And they publish under a different name, that's kind of you. You're doing some work, right? You're making some products, but you're not doing it under your name. You're doing it under a different name. Still you, but you just have a different name that you go by when you're doing the thing. Like Beyonce, right? Her stage name is Sasha Fierce. So still same person, but when she's doing her talent, right, her gift, she's doing her business, she goes by a different name. So that's basically sole proprietorship. Because it's you're just doing things under a different name, you assume all the liability that comes with your business. So if someone has a bad interaction with a product of yours, so this is really relevant, for example, if you have a physical product like people can put on their skin, like I don't know, lotion or lip balm, or people are eating something you make, right? Or you're going to someone's house and let's say you're cleaning, right? People may have the opportunity to have a reaction to that. And if they sue you, they're suing you, right? They can't sue a business because it's you are the business. So all your personal assets would be kind of like available in order for the remediation of that lawsuit. I was going to say something else about that. Oh, there is something called liability insurance that you can get if you're a sole proprietorship. I'm not an expert on liability insurance for sole proprietorship, so it's definitely a question you should ask a lawyer and an insurance agent about, but that is kind of one thing you can consider if you want to be a sole proprietorship, because it does have a few less maintenance requirements, which we're going to talk about, than an LLC does. So an LLC, the advantage of LLCs is that they provide personal liability protection, right? That's why it's limited liability company. That's what LLC stands for. So when you register an LLC, you would register with our office, the Secretary of State's office, Division of Business Services. And the advantage of doing that is that you've created a separate entity from yourself. It's not you doing business as this other name. It's you own the business and the business is doing business as itself, right? So the advantage of that is if anybody sues the business, they don't have a claim to your personal assets. They can sue the business for the business's assets. So let's say you're a limited liability company and you own the building that you're running out of. Okay, that would be something that they could go after, but they can't go after your house, right? However, LLCs, they have a lot more maintenance requirements per year than sole proprietorships. So sole proprietorships, you register that trade name certificate at your city or town hall, and then that's pretty much it in terms of annual maintenance. A limited liability company, on the other hand, you have to file what's called an annual report every year with our office. So you register first, articles of organization, which is the form to create your LLC. And then every year, starting in the following year, every year after that, you have to file an annual report, which is a one-page form, in order to keep the business in good standing. You also have to pay what's called minimum corporate tax, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But it's just two things that you have to do every year. And also there's, because it's um, the limited liability company is its own entity, you have to have more documentation, right, for the business as itself to set it up in a way that it is its own business. And one of those things that you need to do, right, is keep your funds separate. So if you have a limited liability company, it should have its own bank account, and if you're getting money from it, it should be paying you in a very formal way, right? And that's something you can talk over with an accountant what that could look like. But the reason you need to have a lot more separation and be a lot more careful documenting the business as its own separate entity is because just because you register an LLC doesn't mean that in a lawsuit someone might not say, oh, like, look at them, they have an LLC, but they use the same bank account and it's only one person. And so really they're behaving as if they were a sole proprietor. So it's called piercing the corporate veil. And that's the valid argument that now your personal assets could be on the line. So when you create an LLC, it's just something that you need to be aware of. It has to have a little bit more maintenance in that sole proprietorship for those legal reasons. Let's see here. Okay. Any questions on that before I move on?
Could you just explain what it looks like to move
Oh, right.
from a sole proprietorship to an LLC?
I know. Sorry. I forgot about that. Okay. So yeah.
No problem. We had actually the duplicate question in the chat. So
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks everyone on the chat. So converting a sole proprietorship into a limited liability company. So there is something called a conversion, like a certificate of conversion that you can do. So if you already have a sole proprietorship registered at your local city or town hall, you can file what's called a certificate of conversion along with the paperwork to form your LLC. And what that will do is it'll keep your like start date for your business the same. So let's say it's registered a sole proprietorship in 2020, but now I'm ready to start to become an LLC because I want that liability protection. If you file a certificate of conversion, we can keep 2020 as a start date, but the record will show that until 2023, that's when you became an LLC. So it's really filing two forms with us. And it's always a good idea to let your city or town hall know that that's what you did. Every city or town hall is different, as we're going to get more into it. So they may have different processes for just the note, letting them know that this is something that you did. They may require to do different things like file a form on their end. And it's also good to let the IRS know if you have an EIN, what you're going to do about transferring that EIN or if you have to get a new one. All right. Did I miss anything, Kristen?
I don't think so. I think we're in good shape so far.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. So this is the structure. Next, we're going to go to the cost and fees. So I started to talk about that, about some of the cost and fees, right? Limited liability company is going to have more cost and fees. It's going to be more expensive to register and then more expensive to maintain. So the way you can use this chart is based on what business structure you choose. So let's say I chose limited liability company, right? Your initial fee for setting up that business and filing that articles of organization with us is going to be $150. So you pay that once when you submit your formation document. The annual report that I talked about is $50 per year. And then minimum corporate tax, which you guys are very lucky that tax is here because yeah, they're the best ones to talk about tax. So they can talk about, I'm sure they're going to talk about this as well. But minimum corporate tax is a fee that you have to pay every year, regardless of how much money you make. It's just a fee for all businesses in Rhode Island that register with our office. So you can see the sole proprietorship has a none here. This none is like a little misleading because you do have to pay something to file your trade name certificate, but it ranges from like 10 to like $50. So considerably less than LLC, depending on which city or town hall you're registering with. But back to this minimum corporate tax, you have to pay this every year, no matter how much money you made. If you made positive $200,000, you still have to pay this fee in addition to other taxes, right? This isn't the only tax you have to pay. There's income tax and then sales tax. Um, and if you made negative $2,000, you also have to pay this $400 fee. So this is a $400 fee no matter what. Um, Other fees that go across the board are licensing fees. So depending on what kind of business you're doing, there might be some licenses you need to get, or permits, registrations, certificates. All those are the same, different words for the same thing. You need to get permission from different state agencies in order to be able to do your business. One of the biggest agencies, right, for example, is Department of Health. So that pupusa truck that I want to open, food truck, right, that's definitely going to need licensing from the Department of Health. I know this is a lot, but we have some tools for you, which we're going to get to, that hopefully will make you feel a little bit more at ease when you're putting your business plan together as to what you need to do. So these licensing fees, each license is going to differ how much it costs, right? All state agencies are not the same. All industries are not the same. So depending on the industry, the agency, it's going to look different, what the application process looks like, and also what the fees are going to be. Okay.
Gabby, we have a great question in the chat that I think makes sense to cover. So we have a person who has a registered Rhode Island LLC. They are planning to sell their products to people in other states.
Mhm.
Put those good things online and start selling. And they want to know if they have to register their business in every state that they sell, which obviously is separate from whether or not they have to pay sales taxes in other states. But if you could talk a little bit about what business registration in other states looks like when you're selling online.
Yeah, definitely. That is a great question. So, um, it- registering a business, right? Um, in any state is based on whether or not you're conducting business. So if you are operating the business out of Rhode Island, whether it's out of your home or out of a storefront or an office, that's considered conducting business, right? Um, Now, if you're conducting business as in running some operations pieces of your business, keeping inventory, that sort of stuff, you may be conducting business in other states. But you wouldn't, unless you're a very large LLC or corporation, it's unlikely that you have those operations going on in every single state, right? Not even the biggest corporations have an office in every single state. So really you need to understand where are you doing the bulk of your business. Now, if you're just selling online, which I'm guessing is kind of what the person in the chat was getting to, if you're selling online to people in other states, you only need to register. Well, actually, no. If you're selling online to people in other states, you don't need to register with their secretaries of state's office. What you need to do is understand if you're meeting nexus. So nexus means that you've conducted enough business in sales in order for their division of taxation to want to start to collect sales tax from you. So it's usually either a number of sales, number of transactions, or a monetary number, like let's say $200,000, because I think a lot of them are $200,000. So if you are here in Rhode Island, you're selling, let's say, lip balm online, and it's best lip balm in Colorado. Everyone loves it. And you reach that threshold of either number of transactions or dollar volume in sales to people in Colorado. That's when you would have to start paying sales tax to the Rhode Island, to the Colorado Division of Taxation. So that's kind of the two things to consider. Like if you're selling online, what you need to consider is, are you reaching that nexus threshold um, to need to be paying sales tax to the states? But in terms of registering in different states, it's based on, are you conducting business in that state, meaning you have like a physical presence of some sort typically. But that's also something that you can consult with an attorney, what that threshold is, right? We had a question from a person that came in for a one-on-one appointment. They live in Connecticut, um, but they're going to be making their products in Rhode Island. So do they need to register in both, right? Well, they definitely need to register in Rhode Island because they're making their products here. They're conducting business. But do they need to register in Connecticut if they're just running like the operations side, answering emails and maybe keeping some inventory? Like, does that qualify in Connecticut? That's a great question for an attorney. Any follow-up questions, Kristen? No? Okay. So next we're going to go on to employees. And we're going to do it very quickly because it's already 10:44. But okay, employees. So just a couple of things to note about hiring employees. Number one is if you're going to hire employees, then you're going to need to open some specific tax accounts, tax withholding accounts, because when you're paying your employees their salary, you need to take some money out for taxes, just because of the law. So our friends over at tax handle that, and if you have questions about that, you can definitely ask them. But that's just something you should be aware of, is that it's going to require you to do some bookkeeping that way. Also, when hiring employees, there's two different types of people that you can hire. You can hire an employee and you can hire a contractor. Some people like hiring contractors, right? Because it's a little less formal in terms of what you need to do. You don't have to open up those withholding accounts, right? However, just be very careful. And it's like, if it's just part-time work, occasional, but just be very careful when you're hiring contractors versus employees, because the definitions for contractor are getting a lot more narrow, and misclassifying employees could have some legal and tax implications for you. If you were to get audited, you could get sued. So it's just important to understand the differences between how you classify them. And the biggest difference is kind of control over their work. So a contractor is someone who has control over how they do their work. An employee is someone who you tell them how they do their work. So for example, if you have, let's say, someone doing your social media posting, you can tell a contractor, okay, I would like you to do 5 posts a week for the month of March. Okay, that's you're giving them a project to do, but you can't tell them you need to show up at our office at this time and do it on our computer and do it in this way. They have to have the control over how they do their work. Otherwise, they could be classified as an employee. So that's a very good thing to bring up to your accountant or your attorney when you're ready to take that step. Just something that you can talk through with them. And then the Department of Labor in Rhode Island has so many different resources for employers. So definitely something really good to check out. Okay. Also, as for employees, just kind of like a side note for LLCs, if you own your LLC, right, you're the only person that owns the LLC, that runs the LLC, you can hire yourself as an employee, but you're not automatically an employee just because you're running the day-to-day. So if you want to hire yourself as an employee and receive a salary from your LLC, that is possible, but you have to go through the paperwork and the process of setting that up with the tax withholding accounts and with an accountant to make sure that you have kind of crossed your T's and dotted your I's in terms of like the legal paperwork that you need to file. So just keep that in mind. All right, we're going to go next to location. Okay, so choosing a location, we kind of have been hinting at it this whole time, but every city and town is going to run things as if they were their own kingdom. So things are not going to be the same in Providence as they are in Bristol. So for example, right, Providence, you need to get a special food license if you want to get a food truck. In Bristol, that may not be the case, right? It might be different, or you might still need a license, but it's a different license. So when you're thinking about location, um, you have to think about a few different things to like research about where specifically you're going to be based out of. And this is where you're going to be based out of. So if you plan to sell, let's say at farmers markets or online, you don't have to go and register at every single town hall, right? It's just where you're going to be basing your operations out of. So wherever you're going to be making stuff from your home or really answering the bulk of emails and doing all that business work, operations, conducting business, right? So that's where you would register, and that's where you would when you go to register at your city clerk off at your city or town hall at the city clerk. If you're a sole proprietorship, if you're a sole proprietorship, that's where you would register your trade name. But also, even if you're not a sole proprietorship and you are an LLC, you're going to want to still visit or call the city hall. You can start with the city clerk, or if they have an economic development officer or council, that's another good place to start. And you're going to want to understand what are the zoning requirements. So can you run a business out of your home, for example, if you have an online business? Some cities and towns allow it, some don't. Most of them do, but some don't, right? If you have a physical location, you definitely want to call the zoning board of your city or town hall and make sure that it is zoned, because you can get shut down for being out of compliance with zoning laws. You also want to understand what taxes are going to look like for you, because every business owner has to pay what's called tangible tax to their local city or town hall. And what that is it's a tax. It's kind of like a property tax, like any equipment that you have for running your business, there's going to be taxed at a certain rate and payable to your municipality. So that's another thing you want to understand. So when you're starting a business, no matter what structure you have, always make sure to check in with the city or town hall of where you're going to be based out of and ask zoning requirements. Am I zoned to be doing business out of where I want to be doing business? What are municipal taxes going to look like? And are there any other licenses or permits that I need to get to legally operate my business? Okay. So this is a lot, right? Luckily, hopefully, luckily, I hope you guys think this is as cool as I think it is. We have this business assistant tool, which takes you through all of these steps and gives you a to-do list. So all this stuff that we've just learned about, this business assistant is a tool that you can use to organize the information about your business, and it will give you a list of things that you can do. So I'm just going to click on Start Business Assistant so you can see it. So it's going to ask you what category your business is, and then what type of business you have, and then all the different questions that we've just been through, right? What structure, location, different questions about how you're conducting business that might have tax implications, employees, licenses. So all the stuff we just went through, we'll ask you questions about how you're planning to do that for your business. And then at the end, it's going to give you a to-do list. So I ran through this business assistant as if I was going to open my pupusa truck, which is a food truck in Providence. And so if you see here, it has 3 sections. The first section, forms, is going to be all the forms you need to file with different state agencies in order to get your business up and running. So you see here, it says contact Providence, because Providence does have licenses I need to get. I need to talk to zoning, make sure I can park my truck, wherever it is I want to park it. I'm going to have to pay taxes on my truck, right? So there's that. Articles of organization, that's what you file with us. Business application and registration form, that's what you file with Division of Taxation. These are some other forms that you need to file in order to set up those employee tax withholding accounts and hire employees. And then here, application of food service, mobile food service, that would be the application for a permit or license from the Department of Health in order to have my food truck. So what I want you to take away from this list is that it will tell you which agency the form belongs to, right? So this mobile food service application, it belongs to the Department of Health. So if you have questions about it, call them. You take away nothing else from this presentation today is just call the government, call your state agencies, because we really are trying to help. Every single state agency that I've interacted with has been so incredibly kind and wanting to make sure that the people get to where they need to go in order to get the answers they need. So definitely don't be afraid to call. I hope you're not afraid to call me or Kristen. I hope we're not that scary. And hopefully you won't be afraid to call tax after they talk with you, but definitely reach out, because everyone's very dedicated to trying to help business owners, at least that I've talked to. Okay, so then there's also a recommendation section, which gives you a couple of different kind of just background information, right? So this is the maintenance requirements. If you forgot everything I said about all the different things you need to do to keep your LLC in good standing, you can find it here on our website, right? What employers need to know about workers' compensation, because I said I was going to have employees for my food truck. So all these recommendations, they're just extra stuff that you can look into so that you make sure you have a good understanding of all the different pieces of running the business that you want to start. And then rules and regulations. So rules and regulations, read the regulations. They are very detailed, kind of instructions almost for how to run your business legally. So for example, the Rhode Island Food Code, if I click on that, it's going to have very specific things to follow, like food temperature, how to wash the dishes. Like, it's very specific. And any industry that has regulations, not every industry is going to have regulations, right? So like, for example, life coaching doesn't have any regulations currently in the state, but anything that does, it's going to have very specific parameters that you should be following. So definitely read those regulations, because you don't want to be caught off guard by something. So I'm going to very quickly go over registering now. If I can get back to here we go. So, okay, registering a business. So we started off in the plan section, right? That was all the stuff we talked about. You click on start a new business. This is where you can get to those forms that you need to file to register. So we already went over, picking a name. One thing that you need to also have decided before you register is who's going to be your registered agent. So a registered agent, if you're going to start a business that you need to register with our office, which again, LLCs, corporations are the two biggest ones. A registered agent is someone that's going to receive official mail on behalf of the business, and also service of process. So any state agency that wants to send mail to the business is going to send it to this person, or sometimes the office address, but definitely this person is going to be a person of contact. In any like court documents, if you need to, someone gets a subpoena or is serving the business with a lawsuit, then this person is the one that gets served. So it can be you can be the registered agent for your business, but as we mentioned at the beginning, whatever information you provide, which you need to provide a street address for this person where they can be found from normal business hours. If that address is your home, it's going to be publicly available in that corporate database. You can also ask a friend who maybe has a less public address. You can hire a company. You can ask your CPA. This person is just responsible for receiving mail, and the only requirement is that they have a street address, be available from like 9 to 5 at regular business hours. And for your interests, like, make sure that they are very communicative and can forward you the mail that they receive. This is where you would file the form for the type of business that you want to open. Just see, you can file most of them online. If you prefer to do things in paper, you can certainly download that and either mail it in or bring it in person. And then confirming your filing. So no news is good news when it comes to us when you filed something. If we only let you know if your filing has been rejected, but if it's been accepted, the way you would see if your filing has been accepted is you would go to that corporate database, search your business's name, if it shows up, That means your business has been accepted, excuse me, and it's been legally formed. Your EIN number. So an EIN number is kind of like a social security for number for your business. It's a tax ID that you get from the IRS. Main thing to know is it's free. You have to get one if you're an LLC or a corporation, but it's free, it's quick. Just follow this link in here or in the business assistant, and you can apply for one through the IRS. And then taxation. Always call taxation when you're starting a business because you could be subject to different types of taxes depending on what you're doing. So you could be subject to sales tax, meals and beverage tax, I don't know, litter tax. There's a lot of other taxes I'm sure I'm forgetting. The important thing is to call them and make sure you understand what your tax obligations are. And then we also have some welcome packets that you can download that are just have other useful information for you to consider as you move forward. So I'm going to stop there. We have 1 minute left for questions. Any questions, Kristen?
I don't see any lingering in the chat, no, but you know, we are still gonna, well, I'll still be in the chat while our friends at Tax are presenting. So if you have questions related to registration or maintenance with our office and they occur to you in the next hour or so, you can still ask, and we'll make sure we get an answer for you. But thank you so much, Gabby. Really, really appreciate it. Also, we will put both of our email addresses in the chat. So if something comes up and you have a question after the fact and you want to get a hold of Gabby or me directly, you are absolutely encouraged to do so. Um, Anything else you need to add, Gabby?
Oh, yeah, I was just, now that you're saying about getting in touch, if you go back to the homepage, of course, you can reach out to us directly. That is our job. We love it. We love hearing from people. So you can definitely do that. But we also have, if you have general questions or you don't want to talk to us right there, you can reach us with this general email or call our call center, and it's our dedicated call center. So everyone that answers the phone is someone who works in our shop and deals with business registrations all day, every day. And if you want to book a one-on-one appointment, like we were mentioning up here in this image carousel, here it says virtual office hours. This is where you can book a one-on-one kind of like Zoom meeting with either me or Kristen, and we can help walk you through basically everything we talked about, but for your particular business. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And right on time. I love it. Beautiful. Um, I know we have a couple of lingering questions in the chat. I will continue to answer those. So I promise your questions will not go unanswered. You'll just get the answers in the chat. In the interest of time and staying on schedule and doing exactly what I said I was going to do, I am now going to turn it over to the second half of our presentation today, which will be presented by a team of very talented and friendly and lovely and caring and helpful people at the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, and turn it over to them with introducing Nina Savage, our tax administrator, who will, say hello, welcome her team. I want to thank you all very much for joining us on this Saturday morning for presenting this really important information. Take it away, Nina.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Gabby. I'm excited to be here on Saturday morning. Leo, we have a great team, including me as tax administrator, Leo LaBeouf, who is our taxpayer experience liaison. We have Teresa Iafredi, Chief of Excise Tax, and Susanna Coburn, Chief of Audit and Investigations. Leo, next slide. So this is what I look like when it's not Saturday morning. Next slide. The goals of this presentation is to really demystify the division of taxation. As Kristen started her presentation, she said many people are afraid of the division of taxation. We don't want you to be afraid. We have a great group of people. Our mission is encouraging voluntary compliance. We're public servants. We're here to help, and we will do everything possible to make your life as easy as possible. So the goal of today's presentation is to generally share, as you are starting to build your business, a path toward compliance, answer some of the questions that we think have broad applicability to new business owners, and then walk you through some scenarios. Next slide, Leo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Division of Taxation. It's not a scary place, and just tell you what we do so that when you interact with us, you know all of the things we do. And then we'll get into compliance. So the Division of Taxation has about 223 fully funded employees. We hover right around 170 or so, given some of the challenges that all businesses are facing with respect to hiring staff, especially accountants. So we bring in about $5 billion. We handle 59 different taxes and fees. And that 59, they added cannabis this year. And our team, it's the most significant form of general funds for the revenue, for the state's revenue. Our mission is voluntary compliance and to administer all of the taxes and to help taxpayers understand their responsibilities. That's why we're here today. And next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Leo, but before I do that, I just some high level. We will be providing a slide to Kristen after this presentation. All of the links will be live and in the slides. So every time you see a blue underline, it will be something that you can, you'll have it as a resource. Additionally, if you go on our website, www.tax.ri.gov, scroll down to the bottom right, you can subscribe to our emails. And that is everything that is happening at the Division of Taxation. We send out reminders, we send out changes in laws and requirements. But the high level message that I want everyone on this call to walk away with is that we're accessible. We're here to help. Even if you run into a situation, you realize that you should have been doing something and you haven't, we have a team of great people who will assist you. The team that is talking today have all built their careers at the Division of Taxation, and they have decades of experience in Rhode Island tax. So take it away, Leo, our taxpayer experience liaison, to walk you through the information. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Gabby.
Good morning, everyone. So if you're ready to start your business, we've provided some links and resources here on the screen related to the federal tax side of things. So determining whether what you're operating is a hobby or a business, what certain expenses you can take with the IRS on your federal tax return, and a guide for small businesses. You've already seen Kristen and Gabby, especially, has already walked through the business basics portion of their website. Keep their information in mind. These links will be part of the PDF that we send you to. So just to reinforce the Secretary of State's accessibility. And in Gabby's presentation, she walked through the various steps. Step number 5 was register with us. So what does it take to register with the Division of Taxation? You have to complete a business application registration form. So what that form does, it will allow you to obtain a sales tax permit and related permits for sales. So if you're going to sell meals and beverage, it's based on that sales tax permit. If you're selling food, you may have to obtain a litter permit. That'll be on that same registration form. So that registration form should cover most of what you need, including a withholding tax account if you're going to have employees. And our registration form is also shared with and submitted to the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training Employer Tax Unit to register for unemployment and some of the other taxes and fees that are administered by them. They would send you out a separate notice with your ID number, based on your registration. And you would have to remit those through their processes, which they would be able to give you the information for. Some of the permits with the Division of Taxation, depending on what you're selling, does require a fee. But as of July 1st of 2022, the actual sales tax permit no longer requires a fee. It does come with an annual renewal and an annual renewal and that first time registration, but it is not something that has an annual fee with it. So you can click on the link when you get the PDF version to register online, or the second link below for the business application and registration. With that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Teresa, who's in charge of our excise and estate tax section, and she is going to walk through some of the more sales tax related items. Teresa?
Good morning, everybody. Um, so to thanks for everybody to be here today. Um, I'm going to go through a little bit of information about excise section and as it pertains to a new business. We suggest that you use our online tool to file for your bar form. We have a great staff in both in the registration section and in the excise tax section. If you have any questions about, do I check this off? Do I not check this off? Am I business for retail? Am I not a business for retail? Like if you have questions about how to fill out the form, please feel free to contact us at in excise. We'll be more than happy to help you. If you have questions about, I submitted my application. I'm just waiting for the application to come back. When can I expect it? Or what do I expect to get back with my registration packet? I encourage you to call our registration folks. They have the most up-to-date information and they will send you, um, they will tell you rather what they're sending you in a packet. We have a great registration team. Actually, eventually after a few weeks or so, somebody will reach out to you to make sure that you're all set, make sure that you have no questions about how to proceed with the filing of the business. But we're always there. You don't have to wait for that call. You can call us anytime once you're registered, or even before you're registered. If you're wondering, can I register? Should I register? Any kind of, we'll be more than happy to help you answer those questions. We can't make decisions for you, but we'll answer your questions and then help you hopefully to make an educated, proper decision. Um, our online business registration, like I said, is a good tool to use. Just keep in mind that if you check no on the first 4 questions, the application will stop and it will tell you that you do not need to register. That doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. It just it's a computer, right? So if you tell the computer I'm doing this and that, it will answer just about what you put in the information. So if you are opening a new business and you have a storefront, or you don't have a storefront but you are selling at retail and you say no to the retail question, the application will tell you you do not need an app, you do not need to register. That's not true. It's just answering based on the information that you put in. So one of the 4 top questions, one of the first 4 questions I should say, should be answered as yes. Whether you have employees, you have a location in Rhode Island, are you selling at business at retail? And I'm missing the 4th one, but anyhow, one of those 4 has to be a yes in order for you to be able to complete the application. Our
Teresa,
portal section is also very helpful.
Teresa,
Yes.
sorry, do you mind just giving a really brief, like, demystify the term making sales at retail? I think most people do assume that that means like I'm opening the doors to a store.
Sure.
Could you just clarify what that means for tax purposes?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question and that's mostly what we see when the applications get not rejected, stopped, I should say. I'm not doing business at retail, but if you are in the business of selling or offering, selling a product or offering a taxable service, you are considered to be a business at retail. You don't have, like Kristen said, you do not have to have a storefront. It just that that's the in order for you to be able to sell whether a service, a product or a service, a taxable service or a taxable product, you are in the state of Rhode Island as a business in retail, as a retail business. Um, a restaurant, not most of the time, people don't consider a restaurant as a retail business. That's a retail, like for the purpose of the application, you are offering business at retail. I think, Kristen, I seen a question pop up.
Yeah, there's a question about if a vending machine business would qualify as a retail business.
Yes and yes. So you would either tax, well, because it's a vending machine, right? So you do not interact with the customers. Usually in traditionally in the vending machine setting, you you charge the tax, like the tax is included within the price, and you back into the taxable product and you submit your sales tax return at the end of the month. I
Perfect.
believe it's seen something else.
There's a couple other questions in the chat. I'll ask them all, and I don't know if you might get to them anyway. So
Okay.
we'll just ask them and get it all out on the table and go from there. So
All
uh,
right. Sounds good.
I do have a couple of folks who have been messaging me, and they're interested in the new cottage food license, and if there's anything they should know related to taxes in that area. Do they need to apply for a sales tax permit? They're going to be selling at farmers markets with their cottage foods, and then the other oh boy, lots of questions. But another question is if entertainment is a taxable service, specifically appearing as Mr. and Mrs. Claus.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Claus, I have a question. What do you mean by entertainment?
So their their service they provide is appearing at places as Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Is
Do
that
you provide any kind of takeaway, like a gift or something like that, or no? Okay, I see the no.
nope, nope.
So if you're only charging to appear, um, if you're only charging to appear, you just have to. That's it. Just appear and have fun. No, no sales tax imposed on that. If you're going to start, I should say, because you said no already. If you're going to start handing out gifts for free, then um, the fee that you're charging would the whole thing all inclusive would be subject to sales tax.
I just want to say Teresa's talking only about sales tax, but to the extent that vending machines and entertainment services, you may have, and depending on all of the information that the Secretary of State provided, depending on how you're set up, you may have additional filing requirements. So your best bet is to um, call us and work through those issues and use some of the resources that the Secretary of State has. So just Teresa, just to clarify, I don't want people to think just because they don't owe sales tax, they don't have any filing requirements. Thanks, Teresa.
No problem. Yes, I am strictly talking sales tax today. Um,
So
what was
the
the other
other things
question?
were about cottage food and sales taxes related to that, and if they need a sales permit, if they're going to be selling at farmers markets, non-taxable goods, and anything in particular anyone should know about the new cottage food law as it relates to taxes.
So I'm going to refer to Leo on that question. I believe there is a detailed frequently asked questions that was prepared by bunch of departments, including taxation. Um, and I would defer to that
Yeah, so
section.
Teresa's right. So we did participate with the Department of Health in a guide, which I'm sure Kristen can probably share in the presentation because I know she shared it with other presentations we've done before. that there is actually a frequently asked questions document Department of Health put out that includes us. If I remember correctly from the guide, you do have to take out a sales permit because you are
Yep.
making retail sales.
Mhm.
Um, but the baked goods portion most likely is not subject to sales tax, but I would specifically check the guide. And you should contact the excise tax section
Mhm.
probably with your specific item. So depending on the item, depending on the method of delivery, and depending on the place of sale and how it's set up, all impacts whether taxes are due or not. It's actually much more complicated than I am running a cottage food business. Do I owe taxes or not?
Mhm.
So that's what I would encourage. Check the FAQ that will be shared, and then also contact the excise tax question with your specific items.
Mhm.
I
Thank
will
you.
share those FAQs in the chat a little later, so everybody will have access to it. But just in general, right? If you have questions about whether or not you need to charge sales tax on something that you're selling, emailing the sales and excise tax section, Teresa's team, is the best way to go. They will help you be specific about what it is you're asking, right? Everything is, it gets really granular, right? Depending on what you're doing, you may or may not have to actually charge sales tax. But if you give them the specifics, they can tell you exactly what it is that you need to do so you can make sure that you're moving forward in the right direction. I think we'll just move forward for now, Teresa.
Okay.
There are a couple other questions, but I want to make sure that we get to what you have planned here.
Okay, no problem. 7% tax, and I think that will answer a couple of the questions that I seen pop up. The 7% sales tax, the state sales tax rate applies to all products that you sell, all products, all tangible personal property. There are certain services that are subject to tax as well. Um, so if you give something away, I believe that was one of the questions. You can give stuff away, but you have to pay use tax on the cost of that product. Otherwise, 7% sales tax is across the board unless you have a specific exemption. Either you have a specific exemption or specific exemption of not charging sales tax, or your customer have a specific exemption. Leo, next. That is our new and improved sales tax return. I'm not sure if any of the attendees have seen our old sales tax return. Our old sales tax return was just due and paid, and that was that. This new return is a little bit detailed. You have to include your gross receipts. You have to tell us your gross receipts and take out proper deductions for certain sales that could be deducted, as in you sold something for resale, you sold something to an exempt organization, or you provide a service, as in like a mechanic, an example. You would declare all the gross receipt on top, and then you would take a mechanic service or a labor service on line 2C, I believe, as a deduction. Those are this actually a quick pamphlet that we put together, and there are some links here that you could use, and it will be beneficial for you to use if you would like. This is our tax portal website. I mean, link rather. Transact. If you go to step 2, you click on transaction, and hover over transaction rather, and then click on file a form. Your step 3, you're going to complete the return based on the best available information that you know. Like before, what I would do is before I go on there, I would make sure that I have my gross receipts. I have all my exempt sales categorized, so I know like what to put where. Um, I would want to know my account ID number. I would want to know my NAICS code. And then once you have all the information, log on, enter all your information in the buckets where they belong. So you would put your NAICS code, your account ID. That will be the very first thing that it's requested from you. Then you would put your gross receipts, which is your sales number on line 1, then your deductions on the various categories on line 2. Once you're done with that, you can certify, sign, and submit your return and submit your payment. This checklist will help you. Before, I would use this checklist as my checklist before I even log on and start filing the return. If you cover everything on this list, you're pretty much not going to have any issues filing the return once you're logged on. Selling via traditional channels. Who should be charging sales tax? If you sell via the traditional channels, as in a storefront, um, you should be obtaining a sales tax permit and computing the tax to the destination state, which we get this question all the time. Um, if I if I provide lamps for sale and I deliver to different states, do I charge them sales tax? No, you don't charge sales tax if it's delivered outside of the state of Rhode Island. If it's shipped outside the state of Rhode Island, you do not have to do that. However, you may have to reach out to our sister states and ask, hey, I occasionally do a a sale here or there. Do I have to um, tax that product in your state? At least that way you're reaching out to the state, you're getting a proper education, number one, and a proper determination whether you have to charge the tax or not in that instant. But I want to say one thing: if the product is shipped here or picked up here in Rhode Island, that is subject to Rhode Island sales tax. Selling online, that's obviously, we all know that it took off in in the recent years. In 2017, we had an online business model. So if anybody sells online, which would not be considered a Rhode Island vendor selling to a Rhode Island customer, but somebody from out of state is selling into our state, or vice versa, you are a our state vendor and you're selling to different states. Um, we started in 2017. We had certain things that a vendor from out of state has to meet. Um, if you are selling into the state, you must notify your customer. I don't know if any of you guys remember, in 2017 and early 2018, we were receiving letters from online retailers telling us that we may have a use tax responsibility. That's in the law. They had to notify us that there is a use tax responsibility as consumers rather. They give you the phone number to our section. We were getting all these calls on how to do that. So long story short, if you either can file a use tax return once you receive something that's not taxed from our estate, or you can include it on a personal level. You can include it with your income tax return at the end of the year. For businesses, you should be considering filing the T205, which is the use tax return. And if you have any other questions or how to fill it out, or what do I do, how do I fill it, do I have to send it every month or whatnot, give us a call or email us. Kristen had put the contact information in the chat. I want to say one thing though: if you do sell exclusively online through a retail sale facilitator like your Amazons of the world, your Walmart of the world, you do not have to obtain your own sales tax permit. You might want to obtain your sales tax permit because, which I seen actually one of the questions, when I buy my product, if I don't have a resale certificate, my vendor is going to charge me tax. That's very correct. That's true. They have to charge you tax. Um, if you do not want to get charged tax up front, you should be uh, either giving them a wholesale resale certificate. That certificate is actually on the website under our forms, or you can obtain a sales tax permit, provide that resale certificate to your vendor. They won't charge you tax, and that gives you actually the freedom of selling product on your own as well. So it's not just that you're selling through the Amazons and the Walmarts. You can also do business on your own. You can also sell product on your own. I think that's it for me for this slide. The next slide, Streamline. We joined Streamline, the state of Rhode Island joined Streamline in 2007. There are some options out there for registrations through Streamline. However, if you are a Rhode Island vendor that provides Rhode Island sales in Rhode Island, you should be filing through the traditional form of registration, which is the bar form as we discussed before, whether on our website or through the paper registration form. I think that's good for me. Flea markets. So flea markets is a big thing for us, or vendor hosted, promoter hosted, I should say, events. Flea markets vendors are not issued a traditional sales tax permit. You can have a sales tax permit if you choose to, but you still will be responsible to purchase a flea market permit as well through the free market promoter. Um, and again, obtaining a sales tax permit doesn't relieve the flea market permit, and vice versa. The flea market permit does not relieve the need to have a sales tax permit if you choose to sell outside the flea market. So if you choose to sell outside the flea market, you must be having a sales tax permit, traditionally charging and collecting sales tax on that portion. Through the flea market, you have to have that flea market, unfortunately, that flea market permit. You secure that from the flea market promoter. They come in different category, different denomination, I should say. And but it's the same. So if you know you're going to be there at the flea market for the whole year, might as well just purchase the yearly fee, the yearly permit. All right, Leo,
So
next.
Teresa, before we turn it over to Susanna, can you just, so someone who's selling online, if they're
Mhm,
selling online and they're selling to other states,
mhm.
could they have a sales tax responsibility in those other states?
Yes, I believe. So whether you are selling online through the to other states, or you're physically shipping the product to the other state, or I won't say delivering because delivering gets tricky, but if you ship product out of the state or you sell product out of the state via online channels, you may have a sales tax responsibility to that other state. That's when I encourage you to reach out to the state that you're delivering in to figure out your permit, the registration, collections, and remittance duties, if you would.
So Teresa, for Rhode Island, it's 200 transactions and 100,000 in sales. That's a threshold. And other states have their own thresholds, but that's Rhode Island's, correct?
So for Rhode Island, if you are an out of state vendor, not an in-state vendor, in-state vendor from $0 on transaction one, you have to register, collect, and remit. If you're an out of state, say you're a Mass resident or a Connecticut or Arizona, and you're selling into our state, if you're selling into our state, if you reach the $100,000 threshold or 200 sales, then you must register, collect, and remit. But I caution you, that's not for businesses that are physically located in Rhode Island.
Good clarification.
And
And
other states have their own threshold as well, Leo. So again, I would encourage you to visit those whichever state that you choose to sell in to see their threshold as well.
And there is a chart as well on the which we're happy to share in the chat a little later. It's always good to reach out directly to those other states, but there is a chart that has those thresholds on it on the Streamlined Sales Tax
Mhm.
Agreement webpage. So if you're just looking like you're making a lot of sales out to Idaho for some reason, and you're getting a little antsy. If you want to see what that threshold is, there is a chart that you can refer to that we'll share to everybody in the chat and also in the follow up email with the recording. We'll make sure we get you as many of these resources we're talking about as well.
So Teresa, there's a question in the chat. Where do you obtain a resale certificate to show to wholesalers?
So on our website, under forms, under our section, actually, sales and excise, there is a wholesale resale certificate that you can download, fill out. As long as you fill it out properly, all the proper buckets are filled out correctly, you sign it, you date it, you're good to go. Um, and for both for the wholesale and for the resale certificate, they're both are peer-to-peer, so you don't have to send it to us. Some people feel that they have to fill them out, send them to us, and we approve them. We do not approve them. That's just between you and your vendor, as long as the vendor is accepting your form. And again, as long as it's filled out and executed properly, that you should not have any problems.
Teresa, the other thing, can you talk a little bit about the frequency of sales tax filing based on the thresholds, based on how much you collect?
That's an excellent question.
Mm.
When you first fill out your bar form and you're registered with us, you are mandated by statute to file monthly returns. The monthly returns are due the 20th of the following month. And again, so you must do it for 6 months. Once the 6 months are up, if you feel that I am nowhere near that $200 or I consistently do $100 a month, then there is an application, a quarterly filing application that you can submit to us, and it's approved by the tax administrator. Then at that point, you can file quarterly. Once you start filing quarterly, then your return is due. So it's every 3 months for January, February, and March, for example. The return would be due April 30th. April, May, and June, right? Yeah, April, May, and June, it will be July 31st, and so far and so forth. But again, if you have any questions on how to file, what's my filing frequency, why am I set up like this, can I be set up like that, please reach out to us. The email address is there. That's what we're there for. We love to help out, and we just want to make sure that everybody's being set up correctly. I'll
Right, so I think it's time for Susanna to
I'll
take
pass
over.
I'll pass the one to Susanna. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So our goal at the division is to promote compliance with all state tax obligations. A big part of this goal is fostering voluntary compliance with the laws, and keeping detailed business records is a necessary step in obtaining this goal. Keeping detailed records is also a requirement for both federal and state purposes. So as you see on the screen, there are a sample of required records, which are necessary to prepare accurate and complete tax returns. And even if you're selected for audit, these are some of the records that we would ask for. This isn't inclusive, so a lot of this is going to be industry specific. So for example, if you run a food truck, for instance, one of the tax requirements you have would be meals and beverage tax. Meals and beverage tax is a tax that is based on the locality or the municipality where you're selling the food. So in addition to some of the records you see here, you would want to also keep an additional journal to state where your sales were, especially if you are traveling to Pawtucket one day, Providence another. That's information that you're going to need in order to prepare your meals and beverage tax. And then there's sales receipts. We have, sorry, Leo, thank you. But there's some other generalities that are listed here on the slide: the sales receipts, tax returns, purchase invoices, exemption certificates. We do have a few different types of exemption certificates. We've had a recent change to our exempt organizations where the exempt certificate never expired. So there was a law that changed in 2017. The General Assembly is requiring all sales exempt organizations to reapply every 4 years. So exemption certificates just make sure that they are proper and valid when you obtain an exemption certificate. And as for resale certificates, similar to what Teresa had mentioned, when you're filling out a resale certificate or obtaining a resale certificate, just make sure everything's filled out. That way you won't have any issues. All the information is there in case there is a question, in case there's an audit, or in case you're questioned with an audit that you handed in this resale certificate for. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to first talk about artist exemptions. So as of December 1st, 2013, all original limited edition works of art sold in the state of Rhode Island are exempt from sales tax. Rhode Island is the first state in the nation to allow for a statewide sales tax exemption on the sale of original and limited edition works of art. But in order to qualify for this exemption, you would first need to fill out an application. The name of the application is called Application for Sales Tax Exemption for Artist Works, and it may be found on our website. We also have a link through the PowerPoint. So if you were to click on the link or just go to our website and go to the audits form page, you would look for the artist application for exemption. It really just asks for basic information. It's a one-page application. It just asks for your name, business name, address. And we're also looking for the description of the items in which the exemption is being sought. So why do we ask for what you're asking? Why do we need to know what you're selling? Well, we need to know what you're selling because of the law. So the law is very specific to the types of works that would qualify for this exemption. The section of law, in case anyone is interested, is Rhode Island General Law 44-1830B. So some works of art that would qualify under this exemption would include a book or other writing, a musical composition, a painting, photograph, a sculpture, a creation, a film, or a creation of dance. The qualifying works that I just mentioned would not apply to any piece or performance created for a commercial or industry orientated or a related type of production. So as an example, this exemption wouldn't apply to a wedding photographer, right? Even though those pictures being taken at the wedding, it's, they could be considered, I guess, one of a kind, but they're not because you were hired to do this sort of work. So another qualification for exempt works would require the work to be either an original work of art or a limited edition. An original work of art is defined as the creation of a solitary work conceived and produced by the artist and author under their direction, not intended for multiple or mass production. So that's huge. The mass production, as soon as something is set to be mass produced, you're not an artist anymore. That's just the way the law is written. We review the applications and kind of look for that.
Suzanne, we have a question in the chat about the artist exemption. Wondering if homemade quilts would be a yes or a no on that exemption.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And with our application process, we review all the applications, we look for compliance, but we also send the applications up to the Arts Council. So the Arts Council does review, and they're the ones that really ultimately decide. So you can apply for it. There's no harm in applying. There's no fee. So you can apply for it, and the Arts Council would normally tell us yes. And if it doesn't qualify, they would give us the answer as to why. They would explain. Okay. So a limited edition work of art is defined as the creation of a solitary work conceived and produced by the artist or under their direction, which is intended for limited reproduction, and it must be signed and numbered by the artist. The key phrase is assigned and numbered by the artist. This implies that the work is produced under the direction of the artist rather than mass produced, and it is a limited reproduction. So the limited edition qualifier would apply to an author or a photographer as an example, where they would number their works, 1 of 500, 2 of 500, or whatever that number may be. So Works of art have to be permanent objects. So consumables such as handmade candles or soaps, therefore, are not tax exempt. We do get a lot of candle makers and soap, and I will buy all of that at the craft fair. But unfortunately, the tax exemption doesn't apply. So we do have a link here to the regulation for further definitions, further clarification. It is a great regulation. We're actually working on making it more taxpayer friendly, adding more examples, clarifying some items which, we still have discussions about. But the link there, it is still a good regulation, and we are working on improving it. So since this exemption is sales-based, we do require a sales permit with the artist exemption application. After all, you are making sales, so that is one of our requirements. If you do not have a sales permit with the application, we'll reach out to you. We'll let you know. We'll walk you through it. We'll get you to where we need you to be. We also work very closely with the Rhode Island State Council of Arts. Like I mentioned before, every artist application is received and reviewed by the council to ensure we're following the laws and protecting local artists. It's a great exemption. It's a great program that we have in the state. It's the first in the country. We just had a meeting with them, and they're wonderful to work with. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to call us. Feel free to call the Arts Council. Um, I know they have a great website. They have a ton of information on their website as well. And lastly, a sales reconciliation form is required for all artists. It's required for all sales permit filers, but especially for artists. We have a special reconciliation form, and it's called the Form T204W, Annual Writers, Composers, and Artists Annual Reconciliation. This reconciliation is different because we capture the total number of works sold per month, and we collect this information as part of our reporting requirements. Okay, Leo, on to farms.
Just to pause for a moment, a question from the chat for maybe you, Susanna, maybe tag in Teresa. I think we just need general clarification on sales permits, and the way I understand it, and maybe I'll say this out loud and you can tell me that I'm horribly wrong, is that if you are selling anything, if you're going to be offering something for sale to a customer, you need a sales permit to do that. Whether or not those goods are taxable is irrelevant at that time. Once you get that sales permit, it creates an account for you, a sales account for you, sales tax account for you. Once you have that sales tax account, you have to file those monthly returns, even if you haven't been collecting any sales tax. Then, after 6 months, if you're continuing to sell non-taxable items, you're continuing to collect $0 in sales tax, you can go back to the Division of Taxation and say, hey, look at me, I'm not collecting enough sales tax for you to worry your pretty little heads about. How's about I just file quarterly? And then you would still be able to file those same quarterly $0 or $50 sales tax returns to fulfill that requirement, even if the stuff you're selling is exempt from sales tax. Am I wrong?
No, you are correct.
Okay. I hope that made sense. It's so the sales permit is like, hey, I have permission to exist out there in the world of commerce here in Rhode Island. Like this is saying, yep, I have something that I am going to charge somebody to buy, whether it's a taxable service or likely goods. Then the question is, do I have to collect sales tax on this or not? And that's separate and apart from whether or not you need the permit.
Yeah, so Kristen, the only thing that I would add is what Teresa talked about before, is there are certain services that are enumerated in the statute that are taxable, and those would be included as a reason you have to do a sales permit. So for the sake of argument, a ride share, right? If you're hooked up and you're looking at doing taxi cab service or things like that, taxi cab is a taxable service. Now, Teresa might say to me that it depends if you're hooked up with a ride share company who's responsible to charge you tax, blah, 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 blah. But you still have to have that sale. You still are likely going to need the sales tax permit one way or the other. So the taxable service brings you also into the idea of having to have a sales permit.
Teresa, I can't believe he blah 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 blah'd you.
I know,
Unbelievable.
man. What are you gonna do? We love him anyways. We keep him around.
Uh, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt, Susanna. We have other questions in the chat, but I think you're about to get to them. So
Okay, no problem. The only other thing that I will add is that we do have some seasonal filers. So if you're, let's say, an ice cream shop and you're only open April through November, when you fill out your business application, the bar form, you can notate that so that we won't even bother you for the times that you are closed, and you don't have to file zeros for that time period as well. So that's another option if you're a seasonal type industry, and you would just notate that on your business application. Okay, farms. So the state of Rhode Island offers an exemption for farm equipment and farm structure construction materials.
Susanna, just one question on the artist exemption. Dan Connolly in the chat asked, if you have an artist exception, do you still need to file monthly or quarterly? And I think we covered it, but I just want to get to that.
Yes, Dan, you
Okay.
would still need to file monthly or quarterly because some artists, not everything that they sell is exempt. So when you get the artist exemption approved, it's only approved for what you notated on the application. So if you have, I don't know, let's say a website, and you have this one painting, or you sell paintings, but you also sell pencils that may have your painting, or keychains, all those items would still be taxable. But your original works of art that you have the exemption for would not be. So yeah, so even if you're not selling those other items, you would still have to file the sales return monthly or quarterly, however you're set up for. Okay. So farm exemptions. So the exemption can be found under Rhode Island General Laws 44/1830. The exemption applies for farm equipment used directly in commercial farming and agricultural production. This exemption would also include a farm that keeps or boards 5 or more horses. So this exemption has 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. A level 1 exemption is based on proof of annual gross sales from commercial farming of at least $2,500. A level 2 exemption shall be based on annual sales of at least 10,000 or greater. The major difference between both levels is a different threshold for a motor vehicle purchase. Otherwise, both levels are subject to the same type of exemptions. So for the issuance of the exemption, proof of the amount of annual gross sales from commercial farming shall be required for the prior year. And these certificates, once you are approved, they expire every 4 years. So once you renew, proof of gross annual sales from commercial farming shall be required for the prior 2 years. So your initial application is 1, and then subsequent will be 2 years. The information is listed on our farm exemption application. So for simplicity, we use the same application for when you first apply, as well as for renewals. It's the same application, just to streamline everything and keep it simple. We do the same amount of work. So this just seems to be the best fit, really, for taxpayers and for our division. We have a link on this PowerPoint right to the farm exemption. Again, it's a simple 1-page form, asks basic information, your name, your business, address, and the required support is listed on the application that's needed for consideration. The laws associated with this exemption are all listed on the application. So if you have any questions, you start reading the laws, you just start going cross-eyed, just give us a call and we'll help you get to where you need to be. So like I mentioned earlier, farm exemptions have a 4-year life. The 4-year period of exemption is listed right on your certificate. So when you notice the expiration date is drawing near, you can simply fill out the renewal application along with the required forms and either mail or email everything, all the documentation to our office. If we have any questions, we do typically have a little bit more questions with the farm exemptions, just to verify the sales, verify the farming activity. we will reach out to you. So just make sure the information that you list on there is the best available information so that we can expedite the process. The
Jazina,
doc, oh,
we had a couple of questions in the chat that kind of are the same basic question, relating to newer or smaller farms. If they don't have 2 years of federal returns with a Schedule F, can they not apply?
so if it's a new farm and you don't have an exemption currently, we just need 1 year. So we need your prior year. So if you're applying this year, we would need your 2022 return Schedule F just to prove the 2,500. It's mandated by law, so it's, one of our requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, so the documentation necessary, as you were talking about to process, everything's on the application. So again, if you're renewing, we do need the prior 2 years of federal forms, federal returns, including the Schedule F. And if you're new, we just need the prior year. But it is mandated by law in terms of the amounts, the thresholds, the 2,500 that needs to be proved. I think that's all I have. Yeah, okay, so there's the regulation. Again, it's there, it's very informative. But our section is available from Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning till 3:30. So if you ever have any questions, or you're on the fence, you're not sure whether you should apply or not, just give us a call. We'll help you. And if we don't have an answer for you, we'll find one. We'll get one for you. So yep, feel free to reach out. That's it. Back to you, Leo.
Thanks, Susanna. So I'm just going to go through a couple of resources that we have available. This is what our website looks like. It's at tax.ri.gov is the main page. We have links for businesses for you to look at for sales and excise tax, corporate tax, and the contact us link there actually provides all the contact information for each of our sections. We also have a link to a credits page that's there. So if you look at the screen on the right, the picture, it says resources for businesses. We also have a link there that says resources for individuals. So you can click on either of those and it bring you right to the resource that relates to what you might have a question on. I did hear a bunch of questions and we added this slide on the fly while you guys were talking to Kristen and Gabby in the previous slide. So there are differences between single member LLCs and sole proprietors. Gabby went through a lot of these, but we wanted to stress it from the taxation side that there are some similarities, but there are differences. So whereas the sole proprietor is the owner of the business, the single member is the owner of the business when you have a single member LLC. The single member LLC does have the $400 charge. It does have that liability protection per se, as Gabby went through, that separates the LLC, the business, from the individual. But from a filing perspective, they federally, they both file a federal 1040. They both have a Schedule C that reports their income taxes on the state level, and the income itself both flows through to the Rhode Island 1040 from the federal 1040. The difference is that single member LLC does have to pay that annual charge, and that's done on the RI 1065. So here is another slide that shows you the difference in the filing requirements federally from state for the limited liability company specifically. And again, I'll stress that annual charge of $400 and filing the RI 1065. That LLC does have a requirement to go through a dissolution process. So it's different than a sole proprietor where you just stop doing business, you walk away from your lease, you walk away from your rental of your location, whatever it might be. Maybe you're selling out of your house, so you just stop selling. But with that limited liability company, you do have to physically dissolve. It's almost like, and I think I heard Gabby use this analogy in a previous presentation we did with the Secretary of State, and I've used it before too, but it's almost like getting that death certificate when someone passes away, right? You need that certificate of dissolution to close that business out, okay? And something else that we've added in our presentations the last couple times, and I look at Kristen looking at the slide because she hasn't seen this one before. So we've added a profile of what a compliant taxpayer looks like. So we want to help you become compliant. We want you to become voluntary compliant. And our tax administrator, Nina Savage, who you guys heard from in the beginning, came up with this idea of how do we give you a roadmap? How do we help you become a compliant taxpayer? So this is a profile for a generic retailer who has a certain amount of sales and sells taxable goods. They're an LLC, it's tax a partnership. They have some employees. It covers all the basic things. And these are all the things that you would be required to do and the due dates of those things for you to be compliant with the Division of Taxation, for you to not get yourself behind and not getting delinquency notices and other things from us. So this is just a generic retailer. We also have one here, a profile for a restaurant, what a restaurant looks like and what their requirements would be as far as based on their sales and based on their type of company. So certainly if either of these profiles fits your business or you can find similarities within these profiles, we hope that that helps you work with us and become compliant and stay compliant with the Division of Taxation and meet your filing due dates. A slide here that gives you all the contact information for many of the things that we have discussed. I know Kristen put the excise contact information in the chat, but here it is on the screen as well. Our taxpayer portal. Rhode Island did institute electronic filing mandates for certain businesses in the state this past year. If you have gross sales over $100,000 or you remit more than $5,000 in all taxes to the state, you'd be subject to those electronic filing mandate requirements. Reach out to our tax portal group with their email address and phone number that's on the screen. And we've listed some of the other contacts for other businesses here. So with that, I see Nina is on the screen, and I'm going to let her kind of give any summary information she wants. And certainly, Teresa and Susanna are still available. So if we can answer any questions in the last couple minutes here, we'll certainly do that for you.
And the one thing I wanted to add is that we added the compliant taxpayer profiles. And one of the things we're trying to do is be consistent with our neighbors. And our withholding requirements, our sales tax requirements are similar to what Connecticut and Massachusetts require and the federal government requires. So I don't want you to think that Rhode Island tax is doing anything out of the ordinary. We're consistent. We're trying to be consistent with our neighbors to make it easier on businesses. Thank you. We have a fantastic team. And thank you, Kristen and Gabby, for hosting us.
Thank you so much, Nina. And I'm going to push back on that a little bit because I think Rhode Island Division of Taxation is doing things a little differently than our neighboring and sister states in terms of your willingness to help. And, you know, I know everybody who presented today said it, but we really mean it. If you have questions, ask. Like, I know you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to figure out just tell me what I need to do this the right way, right? I get it. There's no need to be frustrated, right? We are here to help. We're here to help you get to a place where you feel comfortable knowing, okay, I'm registered. I know how to maintain this. I know how to do the tax thing. I know how to do my licenses. I know who to contact if I have these questions. That's where we want you to be, right? We can't run your businesses for you, but we want to help you get started out healthy and stay healthy. And we're all one big team moving forward to do that. So please do reach out to us. I will share a copy of the slides that you saw our friends at Tax present today. So you'll have all of those contact informations for the different units. You'll have our contact information. If you weren't taking robust notes, which I know you all were, you will also get the recording as well. And anything else that we talked about today, the list of thresholds for various states, we'll make sure we get that all out to you as well. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to bid adieu to everybody. I know we had a couple of little questions that we didn't get to, so we'll try to get to those kind of offline, including I had questions earlier about cottage food. So I'm not an expert, but I'll stick around and talk to you about about that as well. Anybody who doesn't want to hear about that kind of stuff, you are welcome to go on with the rest of your a little bit dreary, but at least not snowy Saturday. I want to thank you so, so much for listening in, for your interest in this. Be in touch with us, please. And we look forward to seeing what you do and wish you every success in your business. Have a great day, everybody.